Hello, this is an overview video for the Token Convenient Art module version 4.46. In this version, the module there were quite a few changes to the effect mapping and overlay configuration forms, which I thought merited an actual video. So I'll be covering all of these as well as a few bug fixes and miscellaneous changes, and you'll be able to find all of the timestamps in the video description down below, so you can skip over to the stuff that you're actually interested in. But alright, let's get to it. Alright, so let's begin by talking about the effect mapping form. There was one key big change made to it, which was the splitting of the previously named effect field into two separate fields called expression and label. So if you were to open up an effect mapping form for an existing actor, you might be greeted with something like this. So previously, these two left fields would have been just the one effect field. But now when you open it up, the module will have automatically converted it into two separate fields called label and expression. So expression will behave mostly the same as the previous effect field did, allowing you to enter the effect name that you want to be the triggering condition, as well as more complicated expressions as well. For example, HP being below 40%. 40% as you see here. So all existing fields that you have will be automatically converted for you, which will mean that they will simply just get duplicated. So you'll have the expression field, for example, for text box background, and it will be exactly the same for the label. However, now you are free to change the label for your mapping as you wish, and it does not have to impact the way your mappings are triggered anymore. So for example, I have HP below 40% and I do something with this, well, I can add a more descriptive label for this mapping now. So let's say HP turn red when HP is below 40%, which is a bit more descriptive than what was before. So if I drop this particular token below 40%, you see HP turns red. So you can keep the expression as a triggering condition, but now also specify a descriptor for it, making it a bit more convenient. So another functional change related to this and functionally used for the label is that the label will now be used to perform merges when there is a global effect mapping and an actor-specific effect mapping. So if there was a global effect mapping called HP turn red, this actor-specific mapping will override it. So it is no longer based off of the expression. So another change is also that you no longer need the expression to be unique or the label to be unique either. So it is perfectly reasonable now to, for example, if I was to copy this HP turn red, there's nothing wrong with having these two identical fields. So if I click apply, you'll notice that now both of these fields, both of these mappings exist without any issue. This is because of a particular internal system now, where each mapping is assigned a particular ID. So I would probably suggest if you do have already pre-made effect mappings to just sort of get rid of expressions that you were previously using as descriptors. For example, for these mappings, they are always on, so the expression is not really necessary. So there's no problem to remove it. Keep it for the mappings that still need the expressions, but perhaps also specify a bit more descriptive labels for the mappings as well. So as the consequence of this new internal ID system for all of the mappings, the way that the parent-children relationships has slightly changed. So just to remind you what the parent-children relationships are, each overlay can be assigned to be a child of another overlay. So for example, in this case, I have set up this info box that shows up whenever you hover over or control the token. And you'll notice that it consists of various different overlays. So there's the box background, which is this blue background square. And then a bunch of different pieces of information that all will scale together with and move together with the box background. So if I go to the settings for the box background and scale it up, you'll see that everything else scales up with it. And that's because the box background is a parent to all of these children down below here. So the change that has happened due to this internal ID system is that the module is no longer dependent on the effect name to match children to parents. So for example, if I go to the HP overlay over here, you'll see that its parent is box background. But now, because it actually links to the ID instead of the name of the mapping, if I was to go in and change this box background label to blue background, click apply. Now, if I go into HP, you'll see that the parent name has automatically changed to blue background. And that's because it's actually linked to the ID and not the name. So it is now possible to modify this blue background in any way you want, add expressions to it, and so on, and this will not break the link, which is unlike before, which made the creation of these sort of info boxes and creation of these relationships between parents and children a bit finicky before. But now with this ID system, it gets significantly simpler. All right, let's return to the version notes. So we've covered the expression field, the label field, as well as the ID system that underpins them. So let's move on to a new setting, which modifies the way that the module merges actor-specific mappings and global mappings. So as a reminder of how this merge behavior works at the moment, so if I go to the global effect mappings, you'll notice that I have a lot of different mappings that add labels to tokens whenever their HP values enter specific ranges. So for example, if I change this token to be HP of 50, see he changes to bloodied. If I change his HP to 1, he changes to critical. And this applies the same to all different tokens on your scene. So if I change this one to 50, this one also goes to bloodied, for example. But let's say I wanted to modify this behavior. Let's say for this particular token, when he goes critical, I want to do something else, something a little bit different. Well, the way I could do this is go to this particular actor's actor-specific mappings and copy the critical one. And now, because this actor has a mapping with the label critical, it will overwrite whatever global mapping exists with the same label. So let's say for this actor, I wanted to, let's say, set the word critical on fire. So see, it's burning for this particular actor. But if I set this actor to 1, it's still using the default global mapping instead of the actor-specific one. And see, this actor still continues to use all the other global mappings. So it is only just the critical mapping that has been affected. However, you can change this behavior completely. So let's say for this particular actor, you didn't want to just modify the critical mapping. Let's say you only wanted to display critical and you wanted all of these other mappings to be ignored. Well, the way this could be done is by going into configure settings, token variant, settings, active effects, and changing this setting over here called merge global and actor mappings based on groups, which will change the merge behavior from merging on labels to merging on groups. So now, even though for this actor I just modified the critical mapping, if I was to now update his HP to 50, see, the other mappings no longer apply. And that's because this lone mapping has its own group called health state overlay. And all of these global mappings are also under the same group called health state overlay. So this one mapping now prevents all of these other mappings from going into effect. So this might be useful in certain scenarios, but that's something you probably, once you start creating these mappings, it's probably best to start working under one merger scheme and not the others. So just pick one merge scheme, either label or group, and stick with it. All right, let's move on to the next bullet point, which is users can now create their own templates. So in the previous version of the module, you couldn't do that. You were simply provided with a selection of core templates that you could quickly apply to your effect mapping forms, which are still there and have been actually expanded a little bit as well. So if you open up an effect mapping form, click on templates, you can still select, for example, an info box, and the template will be applied to your form. And if you click apply again, it will be saved. And now when you hover over a token, this particular info box will be displayed as per the template. But all right, let's say you wanted your own templates. Maybe you wanted the health state overlays as per the core template, but let's say you modified the behavior slightly. Let's say instead of critical being red, you want it to be a less, I don't know, alarming color, and change it to yellow. I don't know, why not? Right, so click apply, apply, and now you have this new health state overlay that is unlike the core template that you would like to apply ad hoc to your actors. So what you can do is go to templates, and under user templates, create a new template. So here you would select all of the mappings that you want to include in the template. In this case, we want all of them. Click confirm. Give your template a name. So let's say health state critical yellow. In this case, you can optionally give it a hover text. So let's say critical overlay is shown in yellow. Now you can click create template, and now you defined your own template that you can quickly apply to your actors. So let's say we remove all of these global ones. So the health state overlay is no longer applicable to any of the actors. And let's say you just wanted to quickly apply it to this one. You can now apply your own custom-made template to this actor. Let's see, it displays with the yellow critical. And of course, the other overlays still continue to work. And you can do the same for this actor, templates. And here you go. Just makes it easy to create your own set of kind of automation and overlays, then create templates for them and just apply them ad hoc whenever you want to specific actors. All right, so scripts now support DFreds Convenient Effects, allowing you to apply and remove convenient effects. So if you have DFreds Effects module activated, so DFreds Convenient Effects, if you go to your effect mappings and go to scripts, you will then find this new section, allowing you to select different effects and then apply or remove them whenever the expression condition is met. So let's say to this token, we wanted to apply a blinded effect when his HP below, I don't know, 10% for whatever reason. Again, the expression could be anything. And if you hover over the question mark over here, you'll see a bunch of different examples. But just to showcase this new functionality, let's say HP less or equal to 10%. So apply blinded, let's call it. Then we go into script configuration. And then under DFreds, let's look for blinded. Here you go, blinded. And we want to apply and remove blinded whenever HP value falls below or above 10%. So click apply, apply. And now if we set the HP to 5, which is below 10%, see the blinded effect gets automatically applied. And if we set it to 50, it gets automatically removed. But let's say we wanted to apply this effect but not remove it. So we could just simply click, unclick the remove, and just leave the apply selected for under the actions. So now if the token falls below 10%, the effect gets applied, but it does not get removed. And the same applies for the action. You can specify for the effect to be removed, but never applied. All right, so just finishing off the effect mapping section. So a couple of new templates have been added using some new functionality that has been introduced into the module that we'll cover under the overlay section. But just to show off these new templates, if I go under this token, let's remove the health bar, since all of these templates revolve around displaying the health bar. So if we go under the actor-specific mappings, let's remove all of these additional ones, just so it's clean. So if you click templates, at the bottom of the list, you'll find a bunch of health-related ones. So there's a health bar that just straight up displays a health bar. But this is done using the TVA overlays. For example, one of the differences is that if we increase the token size here, you'll see that he actually overlaps the health bar. But of course, we can go in and change this behavior because this is now an overlay instead of the core foundry health bar. So if we go under MISC, let's say we want to display it on top instead. And there you go, and the health bar is now displayed on top. And of course, you can go in and change like other different kind of behavior. So if you want it to be a different color, that's no problemo. Let's say you want it to be blue and red. Apply. Set to 100. See it's blue. And then slowly turns to red. So that's the health bar. Just a recreation of the core foundries one. But if you go into templates and select the health rings instead, see, now you'll display a health ring around the token. Let's reduce its size, it's a little bit more sensible. And here you go, now if you update the HP value, see the ring gets filled out. So that's the health ring. And again, you can change whether it displays on top, bottom, change the color value as well, its size, etc. And we have the health hearts. If we click apply to that, so this one will display up to 10 hearts to the side of the token, depending on how much HP the token has. So you see what each heart corresponds to about 10% of HP. So if we set it to 80, you'll display 8 hearts. If it's a value between 80 and 90, it will display 9 hearts. Right until 90. And as soon as it goes above 90, it displays all 10 hearts. Alright, so that's it for the hearts. Once again, you can change if they display on top, below, what have you. Oh, and by the way, this is done using FontAwesome characters, so you can just not you can also just replace the heart with something else if you wanted to. And it doesn't have to be HP. If you go in and modify these templates, you can maybe link it to some other kind of different resource if you wanted to, but it's just to get you started. So right, we have the hearts, we have just simple circles as well. So it's the same principle as the hearts, but now you're simply displaying circles, which also you see change with tint, turning more red the lower the HP value is. And lastly, we have the squares as well, which are again the same, but just now displayed in a square format. So these are the new overlays that have been added, and I'll likely be introducing more as the time goes on, but that's what you get with the current release. So as we go through this next section, all related to overlays, I'll be guiding you through the creation of a health bar, as well as a few other visual means of representing your actor resources that have been enabled via these new features and adaptations. But alright, so let's start off with by creating just a standard square that I will then be applying all of these new features to. So let's turn it on to be always on, regardless of the expression. Add a simple rectangle shape that is of width 100 and height 100. And let's just unlink it from all of the other token properties, so we have just a basic, simple, static square. But alright, now that we have a square, let's take a look at how this can be modified using these new addition to the overlays. Alright, so the first bullet point, all text fields in overlay config form now support expressions. Alright, so at the moment we have this static square. There's a width 100 and height 100. But this new change now allows you to add expressions to any text field that you can find on the overlay form, which includes shapes, but you can also do it for text fields as well as some stuff on the appearance tab like the images, etc. Alright, so how does this work? Well, let's say we want this square to be of width that is exactly the same as the token. So what we can do is do a double curly brace and type in object.w, object referring to the token and w being its width. And now if we click away from it, triggering a preview, you'll see that the rectangle is being expanded to fit in the entire width of the token. Well, we can do the same for the height as well, object.h in this case. And you see now with the width and height set to be the same as the token, the square is completely filling it in. But we can specify slightly more complicated expressions than that. For example, if we wanted the width to be just half the width of the token, we can do /2 to divide the token width by 2. And as you can see, rectangle is now only half the width of the token. Since I want this rectangle to eventually be a health bar, I'll set this width to be about 10% of the token. Alright, and yes, so that's it for that. Alright, before moving on to the next bullet points in our update notes, let's just put this, well, eventual health bar to be in the top left corner of the token. Slightly more apt location for it. So let's change the anchor point for this health bar to be top left corner as well. And let's just shift it over to the left side, 0.5. This should be 0.5 as well. There you go. So now it sits neatly in the top left. Apply, apply. Alright, so let's move on. Alright, so appearance, tint, text, fill, and shapes fill can now be interpolated between two colors. So the module has been modified to allow you to interpolate between two colors. What does that mean? So that's how the core Foundry's health bar works. So for example, if you drop your token to 50 HP, you see that the color begins shifting towards red. So orange at first, and then more reddish the closer you get to 0. Well, the exact same thing can be achieved with TVA overlays now as well. If we go to the overlay settings once again, go to shape, and under fill, you'll now notice this interpolate color section. So using the base color that the shape has been set to, and a secondary color, let's say, yes, let's just make it black, and some sort of distance between the first color and the second color, the module will automatically shift the colors for you. So see gray, and the closer this value gets to 1, the closer the resultant color will be to the second color, eventually becoming black. Well, for the health bar, we want the color to shift from red to green. So let's do that. Set it to some shade of green. But we don't want this color to just be static. We want this color to evolve as the HP value of the token changes. So how do we do that? Well, as it goes with these width and height fields, you can specify an expression for the distance field as well. So we can make it a ratio between the current HP and the maximum HP. And when we do that, now we guarantee this value to be between 1 and 0. If we click apply, apply, and now we modify the value, you see that the color begins shifting as the ratio between maximum and the current HP value changes. Alright, but before we move on to the next update notes, let's say we also want the height of the health bar to change as well as the value changes. So we can make this height also be affected by the ratio of the current HP value and the HP max value. And let's just put it in brackets so this operation is performed first. And now, if we modify the HP value, you see that the size of the bar decreases as well and increases as needed. Alrighty, so you already have a somewhat functioning health bar at the moment. And because this is a TV overlay, of course, you then can go in and modify various other features about it. Like if you want it to be below the token, you can just set it as an underlay. And now the health bar will be rendered beneath your token. But alright, so let's move on to... Yes, so overlay parents I already covered in another part of the video, which you can find in the description down below, timestamped for you. So let's go to variables. So this one is a bit technical, but what variables let you to do, which you can find by going to the overlay configuration form and click on the variables over here. They let you to define a piece of text or a number that you can then reference within the rest of the form. For example, for this health bar, we're reusing this HP ratio multiple times. And perhaps we want to, perhaps we don't want to keep redefining it every single time we want to do this. So what we can do instead is go to a variable, define a new one. Let's say call it ratio, and just set it to this ratio between HP and maximum HP. And now we can refer to this variable using the eta ratio. So if I replace this with eta ratio, and replace this one with eta ratio as well, you'll see that the health bar still continues to work as before, but now we can go in and change the variable as we wish without having to update multiple places on the form anymore. So let's say we wanted this health bar to be increasing and decreasing based on another resource, not on HP value. So let's, for example, point it to the primary resource of this actor. So let's say replace the HP max with the primary resource maximum, and replace the HP value with the primary resource value. And now, without changing anything in the shape and only changing the variable, this health bar, now instead of HP value, is tracking the resource, the primary resource usage instead. So if you change this resource to 1, you'll see that the bar decreases or increases if we fill up the resource again. Alright, so that's it for variables. You can have as many variables as you want, and they will only be applicable to the overlay configuration form that you configure them for. So they're not shared between other forms. I might change this in the future, but that's the way it works at the moment. All right, the next point. So a new shape has been added, Torus. So let's show that off. If I create a new map, call it Torus, make sure it's on, and go to shapes. On the shapes, you'll find a new selection for Torus. And if you add that, click apply, we get this torus shape. Well, it's more like a half torus at the moment, half a donut. But if we go back to the torus settings again, you'll see that that's because its starting angle and ending angle are between 0 and 180. If we change it to 360 instead, you'll see we get a full torus, a full donut shape. And this is actually how this particular health bar has been configured. For example, here, if I increase the HP value, you see that it gets filled up a bit more or less, depending on the current HP of this actor. So this is kind of the rudimentary shape that has been used to achieve this effect for that actor. But yeah, so it allows you to specify various different options. I showed off the saw angle and the end angle, but you can also change the inner radius, which either decreases or increases the eye of the donut, or expands the outer edge of the torus. Alrighty, so that's it for the torus. Shapes. Oh, a number of new controls have been added to shapes as well. I'll actually use this health bar to show that off. So if I go to this health ring, go to overlay options, and click on shapes, you'll see that this health ring consists actually of 3 toruses. And the new options and new settings that have been added are this label that you can specify for each shape to tell you what it does. So you see we have a torus for the background of the torus when not the entirety of the HP is when the token is not at 100% HP. So if I change it to 50, you see that one torus is only displayed for a specific percentage of the arc, and then underneath we have a background torus that is just a gray slim torus. And of course we have the health tracker, which is the actual color value, and we also have the outline that sits on top of these 2 other toruses. So there has been a label added, and a couple of new other options have been added as well. So you have the clone option, and we can now move shapes down or below, so we can change the order that the shapes are rendered in. So for example, if I move the background upward, you'll see that this gray torus is now displayed on top of the health tracker. If I move it again, now it's getting displayed on top of the overlay as well. And if I move the health tracker to be above the outline, you'll see that it's now being rendered sort of on top of the outline as well. So you can play around with the order of the shapes now. Oh, and it is now possible to also clone them. So let's say for now, let's just remove the outline, remove the health tracker, and let's say we have a background here. We can reuse it all by just cloning it. For example, if we wanted to change the health, just not the health, but the color of the torus, and maybe just color half of it. We can do that by quickly just cloning and modifying just the properties we want to modify instead of having to copy and paste every single property back into the other shape. Okay, so the next change, images, overlay shapes, and text now support repeating. What does that mean? So repeating allows you to repeat a particular image, text, or shape multiple times based on some provided values. For example, I have an overlay over here that changes and repeats these HUDs depending on the HP value of the token. So if I change HP to 50, you see that now it only displays 5 HUDs. If I change it to 80, it displays 8. So let's show how you can do that. So if I click on this actor, let's create a new HUD health mapping. Make sure it's always on. Let's decouple once again all of these other token properties, and let's go into text, where you will find this new repeating option. And yes, and again, you'll find the same repeating option on the image path as well for the image, as well as the shapes. So if I add a rectangle, you'll find the repeating option at the bottom here. But let's stick with text for now. So let's say we want to display a bunch of HUDs. How do we do that? So you can, so there are 2 ways, at least on Windows. If you press the Windows key and then 1, you'll get this neat little dialog pop up that allowing you to select various emojis. So if I search for HUDs, I can quickly put in a HUD here. On different OSs and maybe other different Windows versions, you might not have this option, but what you can do is just go online and look up various icons, various emoji icons that you can paste in here, or you can go to the FontAwesome website, which the Foundry gets prepackaged with, and you can search for and copy glyphs from there and paste them into the text field over here once again. But all right, so I put in a heart here, and let's say I want to now repeat this a bunch of times. Well, I guess first of all, let's take a look at how this heart looks like on its own. So if I click apply, here you go, a single basic white heart is shown on a token. All right, so let's get into repeating now. Let's go back to text and enable repeating for this. When we enable repeating, we get a bunch of these new different options. Let's ignore these bottom ones for now. But so the main one that we have is value. So this is the value that will be used in conjunction with the increment to determine how many hearts are supposed to be displayed. For example, if we had 10 HP and we wanted to display 1 heart per each HP value, we would set the increment to be 1. And because 10 divided by 1 is 10, we display 10 different hearts. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. If we change the value to 5, but keep the increment the same, 5 divided by 1 is 5. So we display 5 hearts. If we change this value to 0.5, now this divides into 10, 5 into 10, and we get 10 hearts again. So you already kind of begin to see the workings of how this HP heart system works. So, all right, so the optional values. So, first of all, the max value. So the max value is necessary if you want to do this incrementation via percentages instead. So let's say you have variable token HP values. So some tokens could have 200 HP, some could have 57, and so on. But you still want to display maximum 10 hearts for each one of them. So then you can base this incrementation and repeating based off of percentage then. Simply set the percentage that you want to be used as the increment. So let's say we want to base HP value, we want 10% of HP to correspond to 1 heart. So we set the value to 10 then and set it as a percentage. And now the module will expect you to provide a maximum value. So let's say that your maximum token HP value is 80 and your current token value is 5. So if we, let's actually make the values a bit more cleaner so it's a bit more obvious. Let's see the token has maximum of 100 HP and the current value is 5. So right from 1 to 10, the module will display 1 heart now. So if I set it to 0, it will be 0. But if it's anything between 1 and 10, we'll see 1 heart. And as soon as we go above the 10%, up into 11, suddenly 2 hearts will show up. So that's how you base it off of percentage instead of just static incrementation. So a constant value such as 1 HP corresponds to 1 heart or 10 HP corresponds to 2 hearts. Instead, you make 10% correspond to 1 heart instead, or any percentage point that you wanted to. All right, but let's go to the other options. So we have repeats per row and maximum rows. Quite self-explanatory, but let's show it off anyway. So let's get rid of this percentage base for now. Let's say we just want to display 10 hearts. So we change the increment to 1 and the value to 10. And let's say we only want 3 hearts to be displayed per row. Well, this is what the repeats per row option does. Simply enter 3 here. And now the module will automatically put these other hearts into different rows once this maximum is exceeded. All right. You can also bound these number of rows using this last option called max rows. So let's say you want to limit the number of rows just to 3. I just enter 3 here as well. And now the module will only display up to 3 rows. So I change the value to 5. You'll see it will display anything up to 3 rows. And we'll cut off. But all right, so we looked at how we can do this repeating behavior manually, putting in static values. How do we actually connect all of this to health now? Well, we've already kind of did the legwork in the previous, in the previous section of the video. and this is done using expressions. So as it was mentioned before, any text field supports an expression, and that includes these repeating fields as well. So what we can do is just set this value to be the same as the token HP, set the maximum to be HP maximum, and let's say we want 1 heart per 10% of HP. Let's get rid of these maximum ones. Just click apply, apply, apply. And now this repeating behavior works off of health points. So this token, this actor has 100 HP. So if we set it to 50, we'll see 5 hearts. If we set it to 40, we'll see 4. There you go, simple as that. So repeating works exactly the same for images. If you click on images, you'll get the exact same options. And if you go to shapes, you'll once again get the same options when you enable this repeating behavior. Oh yes, there's actually also padding for shapes and images. So, and this is because, for example, with text, you can just simply enter a couple of spaces after the heart if you want to increase the spacing between the hearts, but you can't do that for images or shapes. So that's why there's this another option added called padding, which just creates space between each repeats of whatever image or shape that you have. And as already seen before, it doesn't have to be a heart. It doesn't even have to be HP as the values for the repeats. For example, for this actor over here, these particularly dynamite sticks are based off the actor's primary resource. So if I change the resource to 1, you'll see that the number of dynamite sticks decreases back to 1. Here's to 2 dynamite sticks, and so on. So you can connect these and make use of this feature for whatever resource, whatever token value you want, and kind of adapt it to work for your own needs, and change the icons as well to achieve the look that you want. So if you go to text, it's simply just dynamite emoticon. You can set it whatever you want to. So if you wanted I don't know, let's say pumpkin, you could have pumpkins instead if you wanted to. Okay, just finishing off overlays then. So new setting, text align. So that works pretty much as you would expect it to with any other text editor. So if we go to this heart shape mapping that we've just set up, let's make sure that we create some rows for it. So let's say we want 3 per row. And now change the alignment to be centered. You see, now the heart that is on the new line gets centered instead. Or if you want it to the right, you can move it to the right. But yeah, that's about it for alignment. Overlay set to display on hover will not if the ruler is active. So if we have an overlay, we don't have one here at the moment, but let's delete that for a moment. So I found that it was quite annoying when you had an info box, for example, and you were dragging the ruler around. The info box would show up whenever you were hovering over this token, for example. So I found it annoying, and so this behavior has been changed, and the overlays will not show up even if they're set to show up on hover if the current ruler is active. Alrighty, so that's it for that. So, and the last setting that is added under overlays relates to highlighting. Alright, so the module now distinguishes highlighting from hovering. So hovering is whenever you hover over a token with a mouse. And highlighting is whenever you press Alt to select, or not select, but highlight all the other tokens on the scene. So for example, for this HP bar, if you wanted to show up just when it was highlighted, when all of the tokens were highlighted, you could go to visibility, and under limit visibility to state, you can select just highlight. And now it will not show up when the token is controlled, hovered, but only when all of the tokens on the scene are highlighted. All right, so just finishing off then with some of the miscellaneous changes that have been made. So the macro configuration form now will support Art Select. So if you open up your macro configuration, you can now right click on these icons to pop up a search, an Art Select search for yourself, allowing you to quickly search for and select a different icon. There you go. And all right, moving on to the bug fixes. So yes, there was a V11 specific bug related to sharing of images via the side menu over here. So as in V9 or V10 versions of the module, you were supposed to be able to search for what images you wanted, for example, dragon, and just right-click as many images as you wanted to share them and assign them to the token. But in V11, whenever you shared an image, it would cause the side menu to close. But now this bug has been resolved by making the actual update of the actor with these new options to happen after the token HUD is clicked away from, or the token HUD is closed. So even though you selected all of these images, they will only be saved after you click away. And this prevents the new V11 behavior from kicking in that refreshes this token HUD whenever the actor is updated. But yeah, in essence, you just need to know that you can now right click and deselect, unshare and share images in the side menu without it needing to close and be reopened. All right, so moving on to the last set of stuff. So fixed FontAwesome glyphs not rendering on FireFox. So there were some issues on FireFox specifically that caused FontAwesome glyphs, such as these hearts, for example, to not render properly on FireFox, requiring you to switch between scenes and so on to actually make these shapes render. Well, that is no longer necessary, and these should hopefully work as intended going forward. And fixed overlay preview breaking when adding and removing shapes. Pretty self-explanatory. So we have these previews, so you can go and modify whatever overlay you want to and see the changes happen as you make them. So if you go to shapes here and change the color here to green, you see that the overlay gets dynamically updated with that color and being set back to blue once you click away. Well, this was breaking whenever you would go into shapes and add or remove shapes via these buttons. Well, this has been fixed and hopefully should be working as intended going forward. Alrighty, I believe that's it for all of the updates. And yeah, that is about it. I hope you enjoyed the module, and I'll perhaps see you in the next update video if I feel that the next update merits it. Alrighty, have a good one. Bye bye bye.